Letters to Juliet. Okay, so letters to Juliet, which is now, because the World Cup is starting today, which I hadn't actually clocked. Now, the opening of Letters to Juliet makes sense because there's been much discussion about this, that during the World Cup, the way that you program films in cinemas is counter-programming. That essentially what you do is, rather than putting in football-themed films, you assume that anyone that's interested in the World Cup is watching the World Cup. Therefore, anyone who's not watching the World Cup will be somebody who wants to do something completely different. So, consequently, and this apparently explains the Sex and the City opening, although I'm not entirely sure that that's the case. But so what you'll see now... How long does the World Cup go on for?
It's a month.
A month. So during the course of the next month, you will apparently see a number of movies that are counter-programmed. So Letters to Juliet, which is basically aimed, at... There was a question about how many films have got female leads in them. Well, here's one. So Amanda Seyfried is going on a pre-wedding honeymoon. Therefore, you know it's not going to work out well.
That's called a holiday, then.
No, there's a big discussion at the beginning about why it's not a holiday, because after they've got married, after she's married Gael Garcia Bernal, he's going to be terribly busy. The signs are not good for this. He's going to be terribly busy, so they're going to have a pre-wedding honeymoon. They go off to Italy, they go to Tuscany, they wander around, they end up at the wall at which Juliet is meant to have delivered the Romeo balcony speech, and she discovers this society called the Society of Juliet, who lovelorn women come along and take their letters, and they stick them on the wall, and then the society take them off and write replies to them. So, dear Juliet,
like writing to Santa.
It is, except that you actually get a reply as opposed to just getting presents. Okay. So she actually does that. And anyway, so she finds in the wall an old letter which has been there for 50 years, and she says, "I want to reply to this." She replies to it, and the letter said, "Oh, there was a guy, I loved him, but I never met him, and I don't know what's going to happen." 50 years later, Vanessa Redgrave receives the letter that Amanda Seyfried has just written, and immediately turns up in Italy in search of the lost love, what Juliet has encouraged her to do. But she comes with her posh English grandson. Incidentally, the posh English grandson is played by an Australian, which may explain the Robin Hood-esque accent. Here's a clip.
Wait.
Oh,
Sorry.
She comes.
May I come with you to find Lorenzo?
Come with us. What about this fiancé of yours? You're in the city of love, and you want to come with us?
Yes, I do, because he's busy and I'm free. And, of course, if it's not an intrusion.
No, it's not an intrusion.
Listen, I do have one thing to tell you first. This is not entirely selfless. It started out as a simple reply to your letter, and now I think it's so amazing what you're doing. And I'd love to write about it.
A journalist?
If that's okay.
Grant, a journalist, trying to pry into our private lives, Grant.
Charlie, come on, it's hardly state secrets, is it?
I'm not a journalist. I would like to be someday, but...
And you think Grant's story is your ticket?
I think it's a story worth telling.
I'd love to have you with us.
Now, simple question. Are there not enough whey-faced, public school-looking, floppy-haired, toffee, English, young, hunky actors around to have cast one of them, rather than to have got somebody from the other side of the world and said, "Can you do posh English?" To which the answer, incidentally, is no. I mean, surely there's an entire generation of sub-Hugh Grants on the rise, aren't there?
Yeah, but so all American films just have to have Americans in?
No, but if you're going to cast somebody else, right, they have to have something. If they have to be able to do the accent, because the whole point about this character is now. Can you guess what's going to happen? She goes on a pre-honeymoon with this other guy, who's then too busy to do anything with her. She then teams up with Vanessa Redgrave and the hunky toffee, English guy who's actually Antipodean, and they have to spend time together looking for Vanessa Redgrave's ex-love, who, from 50 years ago. Do you think there's any chance that during the course of the drama there will be a reconciliation? That what will happen is that the toffee-nosed English bloke will somehow warm towards Amanda Seyfried's American. Do you think there's any possibility of that?
It sounds quite likely. I think that's the way you're teeing it up.
Okay.
But I do have to say, there are quite a few fey English actors like Robert Arpats.
Robert Arpats, yes.
Right, well, he can pass himself off as an American, can't he?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that in this particular case, your man here can't pass himself off as a Brit. It does sound like Dick Van Dyke but posh, which is a problem. But That problem aside, the problem of that aside, the problem that obviously it exists in a world in which it's possible to post a letter from Italy, it arrives in England 12 hours later, and probably the next day somebody having received it is able to be in Italy. The fact that it has the most unbelievably contrived plot twist, and it is just sappy and silly and drippy and all that sort of stuff. You know what? I kind of liked it. And one of the things I liked about it was this. It kind of liked itself, and the characters were kind of likeable. And I saw it the same day that I saw Greenberg, in which it's the oh, I got to do nothing. Oh, I like doing nothing. Oh, it's so great the way you do nothing. In Letters to Juliet, right?
What voice was that?
It's just the all-purpose, self-regarding, academic, whinging,
all that in one frog-sounding sound effect.
As opposed to Letters to Juliet, which is basically a kind of breezy, silly fantasy rom-com. I mean, it's not up there with Princess Diaries, but frankly, what is? But it's lifted shoulder high by, Amanda Seyfried I think is very likeable anyway, but Vanessa Redgrave is an extraordinary screen presence. I mean, obviously I love The Devils, the Ken Russell movie, which I think is a shrieking.
You must tell us about that sometime.
Yes, I must do. But in this particular case, how nice to see a film that essentially the central plot, rather than what's happening with the young people, the central plot is that Vanessa Redgrave is looking for the love that she lost 50 years ago. And you know what? Because it's Vanessa Redgrave, you care about it. Also, she's not only is it's extraordinary the way she commands the camera, but she does appear to be performing in a movie which has sort of strange, biographical overtones. I mean, I don't want to give away the ending, but you can see from the poster, incidentally, that there is a role for Franco Nero. And there is something about the way in which Vanessa Redgrave can take even the flimsiest script, something which is essentially just cotton wool, and yet deliver it in a way that you suddenly find yourself thinking, I'm kind of going with this. And I mean, as I said, I think it's aimed primarily at 12 to 14-year-old girls, and it's kind of sweet and charming and goofy, along with being sick. I mean, I sat there in a screening room full of critics who were feeling quite snidey and sneery about it because it's so ridiculous, because it's, it is gooey and treacly and all those other things. But every minute that Vanessa Redgrave was on screen, I was totally with it, even when she was on screen with the guy who can't do the English accent. And Amanda Seyfried, I said, I think is a good screen actress. I mean, people remember from Mamma Mia, and she's kind of playing to that here. Also, you get the feeling they all probably had a nice holiday. It's one of those movies that reminded me of, before the 1970s, movies used to all the time have a scene in an airport, and then they go, because people didn't travel that much. And the idea, you go to the movies in order for like a travelogue thing. Let's go and see the new James Bond film. Where does it take place? Switzerland. I've never seen Switzerland. And there was a sense of that. It was like, oh, look at this. Look at the lovely countryside. Look at the lovely sunshine. Look at the lovely wine. You can almost smell the flowers, can't you? And in the case of Vanessa Redgrave's performance, I could. I liked it.